The Houston Texans are 2-0 on the season. They look to go to 3-0 against the Minnesota Vikings this weekend on the road. There's a couple of things during this 2-0 start that need to get cleaned up for the Texans to go where they want to go. Now, there's plenty of good things, okay? CJ Stroud has showcased that he is a unique and special talent at the quarterback spot. Nico Collins picked up where he left off last season. The pass rush looks ferocious, and the Jalen Petrie experiment with his new position seems to have revived him. There's plenty of good things going on for this Texans team. But as the great Jeff Van Gundy would say, don't ignore in victory what you would not ignore in defeat. Something along those lines. And he's attributed to creating the quote, and he's the one that I've heard say it the most. So we go with JVG on that one. 3 things that the Texans need to clean up or work on, and if they're capable of working on and cleaning those things up, and how long it could take them to do that. Let's start with a interesting one. It was week 3 of last season when Tank Dell broke out and had a huge game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Remember him catching the bomb from CJ Stroud to put the Jaguars away in that game? It was the Tank Dell coming out party in week 3. I'd love to see a similar situation in week 3 of this season. Tank Dell's been used as like a gadget player so far through the first couple of games. Heck, he had more carries than receptions the other night. Now, one pass did get a little away from CJ Stroud over on the sideline, and Dell should have caught another one in that game, but he hasn't been treated like he was last year. And he was a dynamic player last year. He was on pace for 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns before he hurt his leg in the Denver game. Let's get some typical Tank Dell from last year. Less gadget, more wide receiver from Tank Dell. I'd love to see him get going. And if he got going and added just another layer to this passing attack that has had some really nice moments, but is primarily focused on Nico Collins dragging them through these first 2 games. Now, don't get me wrong. Stefon Diggs' 2 touchdowns, fantastic. He had some tough catches in that first one. He had a nice one over on the sideline against the Chicago Bears. But getting Dell involved and working him into the offense would go a long way to making sure that this offense hits that top potential. We've talked all offseason how the Texans might have the best wide receiver room in football, and in large part because people would think Tank Dell's the 3rd wide receiver, and he's better than pretty much any 3rd wide receiver in all of football. Let's see just how good Tank Dell is. Now, is this something that can get fixed in the short order or something that's going to linger for this Texans team a little bit longer? I actually feel like it's going to get fixed this weekend. Less gadget, more wide receiver from Tank Dell. Use him like he was used last year, and you should see results like he had last year as well. So I feel like that's going to get fixed pretty quick for the Houston Texans. Here's another obstacle in the way of the Texans' success. It's the offensive line's pass blocking. Now, I could just say the whole offensive line, but that would be unfair to the success they had in week 1 on the ground. And the run block against Chicago, it's really hard to do. Chicago's the best team in football last year stopping the run. So if you don't have a great run blocking day against Chicago, I'll give you a mulligan on that one. But the pass blocking from this team, going up against a Minnesota team that's got a couple of guys that can get after the quarterback, I'm a little worried about the pass protection of this Texans offensive line. Stuff up the middle, stuff off the edges. I mean, Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard are one of the most expensive tackle duos in all of football. It doesn't feel like the Texans have gotten top protection potential out of those guys through the first couple of games. And Stroud can mitigate some of that. He can handle some of the pressure pretty well and pretty easily in maneuvering within the pocket, rolling out. I call it just the floating, where you can kind of float and keep a play alive. We saw that with the scramble drill to Nico Collins in week 1. He can keep a play alive and get it to Nico like we saw in, the week 2. We may see it in week 3 and week 4, so on and so forth. So Stroud can handle some of that, but it'd be nice if he didn't have to handle any of that. And I do wonder if some of the offense and the timing is off because the pass protection hasn't quite been peak for this team so far. Now, they don't have to be the best offensive line in football, and they're probably not going to be the best offensive line in football. But if they were solidly above average going forward, then I would feel pretty good about this Texans situation and really good about the offense overall. But they've got to click, and something has to come together for this offensive line. Injuries, not a total excuse. You missed Drew Scruggs in week 2, but if he's back in week 3 or Patterson gets another opportunity, build some sort of cohesion and make something happen from a pass blocking standpoint against a pretty nice Minnesota pass rush to this point as well. So let's see what they can do and build some cohesion. So is this going to be a long-term, season-long issue? I certainly hope not. We'll actually find out if it's going to be a season-long issue in the next, I'd say, 3 to 5 weeks, because I do want to give the offensive linemen benefit of the doubt. It's unfamiliar pass rushers in Indianapolis and Chicago, so you don't go against those guys a ton. Kwity Paye had been hurt, and Latu is brand new in Indianapolis, and you don't go against the Bears pass rushers a whole heck of a lot. Titus Howard and Laramie Tunsil coming off of offseason injuries, still knocking some of the rust off. Titus Howard hadn't played right tackle in over a year, so still knocking some of the rust off, and they didn't practice a ton together in the preseason. So if we're watching this and monitoring this, let's take the next, say, 3 to 5 weeks and really hone in on if this pass protection is going to get to the level that it needs to get to for this Texans team to succeed, or is this going to be an obstacle they'll have to manage over the course of the entire season? We'll know in the next, I'll just call it a month or so. We'll know in the next month or so if this pass protection's going to get up to the level that many believed it could heading into this season. A moment here for my friends at PrizePicks, the best and easiest way to play daily fantasy. So what else could you want? How about $50 to play at PrizePicks? Well, use my code Stoots, STOOTS. Play your first 5 and you're going to get $50 to play with at PrizePicks. It's that easy, that simple. I'm going to show you just how easy it is to use PrizePicks. You got all these different sports and options that you can go through. I like to primarily stick with football. That Caleb Williams square of more than half a pass yard is sticking around for one more week. Let's go ahead and throw something. Oh, my. J.K. Dobbins, who's got 266 yards through the first 2 weeks, more or less than 54.5 rush yards. Oh, we're going to go with more on that. Let's put a little $5 in there. Get 3 times our money on this. I mean, that's pretty easy. Look how simple it is to use PrizePicks, get an entry in. And there's even ways where you can 100 times your entry as well. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Don't miss out on this great offer as well. Use the code Stoots, play your first 5, get $50. What more could you ask for? And finally, a huge obstacle, especially for this week, but is one that I'm having a hard time seeing how the Texans go over or around or under. This is an obstacle that is very tough to overcome, and it's Joe Mixon's health. If Joe Mixon is back for the Vikings game, even if he's not 100%, I like the Texans' chances to run the ball consistently and turn around and hand it to Mixon as much as they feel like they need to hand it to Joe Mixon. But if Mixon's ankle injury, which he suffered on the Sunday night game against the Bears, if that keeps him out for a week or 2, all of a sudden you're looking at a running back room that I don't have a ton of faith in. Dameon Pierce has a hamstring injury that kept him out of this most recent game. So is he even going to be a healthy option for this team? Dare Ogunbowale is best served as a rotational back, third down specialist, pass blocking specialist. I mean, he's not afraid to mix it up there, but I don't want Dare Ogunbowale carrying the ball a lot. And then there's Cam Akers. Cam Akers had some really nice runs in the game against the Chicago Bears when he came in for Joe Mixon. He broke off a explosive play on the ground for a nice gain. He had a 7-yard carry. He also had a fumble on the goal line when you would have put the Bears away with that score. So I am hesitant to just say, hey, okay, hand the offense to Cam Akers and let's see what he can do. Let's see if he can fill in admirably for Joe Mixon. Now, maybe it's a mix of Pierce and Akers and you figure out which situation works best. But again, that's a big if for Dameon Pierce with a hamstring injury, limiting him in practice and then keeping him from practice late last week. So it's Cam Akers, it's Dare Ogunbowale, and then it's, your guess is as good as mine. J.J. Taylor is on the practice squad, and British Brooks is on the active roster. But British Brooks doesn't practice with the running backs. He practices with the tight ends and the fullback that's on the practice squad and Troy Hairston. So it's not like he's practicing a lot of the running back situations that he maybe would be thrust into. Now, obviously, he got some work there in the preseason, but I don't know that he's an option. So you're looking at all of a sudden a pretty thin running back room if Joe Mixon can't go this weekend and Dameon Pierce can't go this weekend. That's not an easy obstacle to overcome, go around, go under, anything like that. That's okay. They've got a pretty good passing attack, a really good passing attack, and maybe great passing attack if we get Tank Dell going, like we talked about a moment ago. So if you just pass the Minnesota Vikings to death, maybe you could take care of business that way. But at some point, you'll need to run the football. I am a little worried about that one. Now, Joe Mixon is tough as nails. He's played through some injuries before. I understand being cautious with him. You don't want to put him out there in case it can get worse, and then you really miss him. It's better to miss Mixon for a week or two than a month or two because you rushed him into action. So I'd feel a little bit better if it was Pierce and Akers, but if Mixon and Pierce aren't ready on Sunday against the Minnesota Vikings, it gets very, very daunting in seeing exactly how this Texans team is going to consistently run the football without one of those two guys, and especially without both of those guys in this matchup against the Purple People Eaters up there in Minnesota on the road. So when will we know if this is going to be fixed? Well, hopefully Wednesday afternoon, we see 28 out there on the practice field, and we know that he's on his way to playing in that matchup. And if not, hopefully we see 31. And if we don't see 28 or 31, hold on to your butts. It could get a little interesting when the Texans decide to run the football. What say you? You see any other obstacles that I missed about this team? Am I overrating how big of an obstacle some of these things would be? Let me know in the comment section down below. On your way down there, throw me a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And don't forget to check out SNL Texans Talk. Stoots and Locker, myself, Landry Locker from the Locker Room. We've got a daily show for you, 30 minutes on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We've got the 2-hour Reaction Monday show, Friday afternoon after the final injury report. You don't want to miss it. It is the best duo talking Texans in town. And it's right here on YouTube live each and every day. And wherever you get your podcasts, just type in Stoots and Locker, and you'll find the podcast. I've also got the links in the description down below for you. You know what else is linked in the description? PrizePicks. We talked about it earlier. We even put an entry in. It's too good to pass up some of those fantastic opportunities with PrizePicks. Too good to pass up this offer as well. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. Use the link in the description down below. Appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I can't wait until we talk Texans again soon.